The first of the final 4 sessions is going to be hosted by Angelika Anton. She is a super successful VC and investor at Silk Ventures. She's very well renowned in the scene, has won many prizes and awards, and she has a famous and successful entrepreneur with her. So please all give a warm round of virtual applause or real applause in the virtual world to Angelika, who will announce her guest and her topic. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Bună ziua, Cluj. Thanks, Philip, for the generous introduction. And as you mentioned, I'm a technology investor and currently investing in longevity and mental health. And today I am delighted to be joined by Christian Angermayer. Christian is a serial entrepreneur and investor, most notably the founder of his private investment firm, Apeiron Investment Group, which manages more than 3.5 trillion, billion across different strategies, and has invested in over 100 companies in areas such as life sciences, fintech, crypto, deep tech, and more. Christian is also one of the driving forces behind the movement to turn long-shunt psychedelic compounds such as psilocybin and DMT into approved medications for the treatment of depression, anxiety, and other mental health conditions. Christian, it's such a pleasure to be hosting this conversation today.
Pleasure is all mine, and I hope your 3 trillion assets under management somewhere come true. That was a great introduction.
So let me start with a simple question to open a door for the audience into your magic world, Christian. Your investment scope is broad and versatile, from mental health to life extension, all the way to fintech and even space tech. And the underpinning thesis that connects all these different areas is your vision for the future world that you want to build and live in. So can you share with us the highlights of that vision, and what does the future look like through your eyes?
Okay, well, it was already a perfect summary. I'm actually, in a more sort of simplified way, I'm always saying I'm investing in companies and themes and ideas which personally excite me, because I think that's what life is all about, to be happy, to be excited. But indeed, in a more sophisticated answer, I believe that if you look back over the last, 50 years, 20 years, 30 years, we have the feeling, and obviously a lot has happened, we have the feeling that we're living in a time of technological disruption already. But truth is that many things, if you would take somebody out of the 50s and miraculously transport them into our time, he or she would be perfectly fine. Yes, they would be, okay, what is in your hand? You have an iPhone, okay, but they had a phone back then. So now they're okay, you have the phone in your hand, it's wireless, but there are still cars. We build, for example, take the entire construction business, building houses, it's still exactly the same than back then. So a person from the 50s could easily, after some days, live in our time, and there would be sort of no adjustment thing. So because actually not so much has happened. Yes, again, we have the iPhone, but truth is mainly we disrupted the whole social media world, internet. And with the internet, the help, we disrupted a lot of sort of supply chains, sort of Amazon took out the middleman, whatever. But again, everything else, and especially the core things, driving, living, even our health in a certain way, is actually surprisingly not disrupted a lot. However, looking forward, I think in the next 10, 20, 30 years for sure, let's say 20, this is going to change. Now we're really coming to sort of fundamental innovations or fundamental disruption from space tech, so I would say simplified, we're going to really now in a structural, fundamental way, change the world around us, from traveling, building, whatever. And additionally, which is even more exciting, I think for the first time can also change the world inside us, so our body and especially our mind. So I think we are actually entering the most fascinating period of humanity, with all, by the way, the volatility and risks, whatever. But I think ultimately, I'm an eternal optimist. It's going to be amazing, and I want to be sort of a small part of it, as you said, designing and creating the future we're going to live in.
Well, that's a contagiously happy and optimistic version. Thank you, Christian. And yet, this happiness that you're referring to is such an elusive experience. Our minds lie to us a lot about the things that make us happy. When we get one of those things that we think we want, like buying a new house, it feels good it feels good in the moment, but not as good as you anticipated. And it doesn't feel good for as long as you hope. So, Christian, how do you find and how do you sustain happiness in your life? Because as I said, you're just such a permanently happy and optimistic person.
Well, I think and by the way, you already mentioned it, because then I always want to say it before, because otherwise people would ask, why would you ask Christian about happiness? Because first of all, happiness is sort of another, if you look through our entire portfolio, so sort of happiness is one of the underlying themes, not just in biotech, where we play it very directly. We're the largest investor globally in new mental health solutions, so practically curing or helping people who are not happy, and in a clinical way not happy, meaning having depression, anxiety, addiction, whatever. But even in other things, we own the largest life entertainment business in Europe, and I think experiences and doing things with friends make you happy. We have a hotel chain. And in general, I think community is a very important aspect. Anyway, so happiness is indeed a sort of one theme we sort of look a lot at. And coming to your question, I would say, first of all, being happy, I think, should be the ultimate goal of everybody. And I think we almost have seen in the West a little bit, or look at happiness as something which is egoistic and hence sort of bad. So I think a lot of people, it starts there actually. They believe they don't deserve happiness. They don't dare to say that I want to be happy, because then people could say, oh, this is very egoistic in a world where other people are not happy. And I was like, well, just because other people are not happy, I should be happy. And actually, my view is just when you are happy yourself, then you can start making other people happy. So happiness, I think, is sort of really one of, if not the reason of existence almost. And by the way, because you mentioned the house, that's also when you poke people why they want things, a house, a family, a job, money, health, whatever. If you poke, and always say, why do you want the house? Why do you want the family? Literally every single person on the planet, at the very end, if you always go, why, will at the end say, because I want to be happy. So then they dare to say it if you push them. So we should actually start with that and saying happiness is a human right, and we should all strive to be happy. So coming to the question of elusiveness, I think there is two different levels. There is this short-term happiness, which individual actions or consummation, like buying a house or whatever, gives you. And then there is this level below. And when I'm talking about happiness, it's sort of this feeling below where it's very hard actually to describe, but I would always say that you sort of like yourself and in generally your life. That doesn't mean, by the way, because people always say, oh, you're very happy. It doesn't mean that I'm not having a bad day. It doesn't mean that I'm not having a stressful day or week or whatever. But like there is sort of the underlying sort of realization or knowledge that sort of in generally, I like myself, I like my life, and I think I'm doing the right thing as well. And now it's almost getting a little bit spiritual, which I would say is what I'm supposed to do. So answering your questions, I think the most important thing is knowing yourself and sort of really knowing what makes you happy, like how should you lead your life. And I think there is no blueprint people can give you from the outside, because what fits for the one person doesn't fit for the other person, because we're different human beings. So let's call it self-exploration, which is, by the way, for many people harder than you might think, because the problem is that since we're born, other people tell us or give us the feeling that we have to fit in and say, okay, this is how you need to act, this is how you need to be, so that you are accepted. And sort of, so
Christian, that's a beautiful, beautiful answer. I'm sorry I have to interrupt. We have so much exciting stuff to go through. And I was hoping with this answer to actually open the door to the exciting topic of psychedelics. I just came across this quote by Dr. Stanislav Grof, the Czech psychiatrist, who said that psychedelics are to the study of the mind what the microscope is to biology. and the telescope is to astronomy. And I thought that was an interesting and very bold statement. And it's true that the amount of new research on psilocybin and MDMA is reigniting the hope that psychedelics could be powerful tools for mental health, ultimately for happiness. And indeed, if they prove to be effective and safe for these disorders, they could be transformative. So while research is still underway, I think the audience and myself too would love to hear about your personal experience with psychedelics and perhaps a bit about your mission at High Life Sciences, the psychedelic company you've created.
Let's make it short in terms of personal. I actually the fun story I always tell, which is true. Like I told it so often, I really shorten it. But I literally, before I tried psychedelics in 2013, I really never ever had tried any other drug before, not even alcohol. Coming from Bavaria, yeah, that's a big thing. Where beer in Bavaria is a daily nutrition, yeah, and not a drink. So I've never tried alcohol. I've never smoked a cigarette, never smoked a joint, never took anything stronger. Yeah. And then via a long story, the story is very fascinating, but I spare it for now. But because there were so many individual things happening, which led me to ultimately trying psychedelics myself in 2014. And I didn't want to, by the way. So I was really trying to avoid it or didn't do it. But there were so many things which sort of came up that so I had the feeling I should do it, but different than other people, I didn't look for anything. A lot of people actually come to psychedelics already now, sort of underground, because they search for healing, because they're depressive, they read about it. I was the opposite. I was always luckily very happy. This is why I didn't do any drugs so far, because my view was always I don't think I'm dumb, and actually I'm very happy. So that is quite good. So that was always, don't rock it. But long story short, I tried in 2014. I was the first one, and then trips to follow, but hands down, I would describe it as the single most meaningful thing in my entire life. Full stop. Nothing comes close. And when I came out of the trip, or the next day, I was like, holy shit, if it's doing this amount of sort of positive happiness, or if it's adding this amount of positive happiness to me as a happy, healthy person, I can totally understand how and actually I can use it provenly, yeah, with very low to zero risk, yeah, have the potential to cure and soften mental health issues. Why can I say that? Because this is where some of these drugs were used in the last century. So psilocybin, especially, so magic mushrooms, was an approved medication in Europe for depression. Yeah. And then via a long sort of unfortunate story of political abuse, so practically simplified what had happened, it was a medication. By the way, it's very important because that's what I want to make it again. These drugs were a medication to be taken with a therapist together. So I don't want to make psychedelics legal so that they can be, or consumer legal. I even don't want to make them available in a pharmacy on prescription. What we want to do is make them available with a therapist together. So in the future, hopefully, you're going to go to your therapist and you do the trip with him or her, and then you go home. Yeah, but because the trip in itself can be, especially for people who have a mental health issue, can be very deep. This is why the trip is very good, but can also be challenging. It's not always happy. It's not a happy drug per se. It's a very spiritual and very sort of enlightening, but sometimes learning things about yourself can be very painful. So, and then just side note, why does it have a bad rap? Meaning it's changing. So it's interestingly, maybe people in the audience are saying, hey, it doesn't have a bad rap actually, because over the last years, the perception positively, thanks to our work, has changed so quickly. Yeah, but 10, 20 years ago, the bad rap was because in the 60s, 70s, the political class in the US abused it to blame the hippies, to be crazy, because the hippies went against the Vietnam War. So sort of the marketing of Nixon's administration was oh, they are crazy because they're taking all these psychedelics. Yeah, while the hippies actually did the good stuff. Yeah, technically illegal because they did it outside the hospital. But this explains where this very positive hippie attitude, happiness, love, acceptance comes from. Yeah, but the government used sort of that to blame them and sort of almost blackmail them. And unfortunately, till we started our work, yeah, psychedelics had never recovered from that sort of bad marketing.
Thank you for this great crash course on the history of psychedelics. So you also mentioned that the intended use, you see the ideal use is with a psychiatrist in the clinic. So would you agree with the notion that the one of the biggest drivers of the renaissance of psychedelics is really the global mental health challenge that we're experiencing? And it's this multi-trillion-dollar challenge that we're still unsure how to solve.
100%. I think the two drivers, meaning I could say I'm a small driver, but like the two changes, what happened, why it does work now. Because sometimes, by the way, and we hear at a tech conference with a lot of entrepreneurs, this story, what we built with Atai, is also, by the way, a story that sometimes you have to have not just the right idea, but the right idea at the right time. The same idea, me saying psychedelics should be legal or should be medically available again, 20 years ago, most likely wouldn't have worked. So what has changed? The two big things which sort of paved the way, or the three things which paved the way, was one, that cannabis sort of moved from being completely shunned and completely outlawed to more or less, and in many states in America, be accepted and legal. While I have to say, psychedelics as a substances have nothing to do with cannabis. And again, we want to bring psychedelics back as a medical treatment, cannabis as a consumer treatment, but on a very high level, sort of that notion that something which had been illegal once can change. Cannabis was actually a good sort of start with. The second big thing is what you said. Mental health has become, and we're just about to start seeing the start of a crisis, but mental health issues already today are the biggest problem of the healthcare system, full stop. So the numbers are exploding. Sort of there is more than 1 billion people globally, which is the biggest group of patients suffering from one or more mental health issues. And I bet for many reasons we could talk about, in 5 years, it's 2 billion. So that is the second reason. And the third one, which shouldn't be underestimated, is that today, and it's actually really just happened over the last 5-10 years, we started understanding our brain, really what is happening. And if you're in biotech, there's always sort of the saying, the FDA really, even if you can prove the efficacy of a drug and the safety, as long as you can't explain what it does, it is another hurdle. So there are actually medications where we really don't fully know what they do, but we know they're safe and we know they work. But the FDA normally doesn't like a so-called unknown mechanism of action. So in the 60s, people were seeing that psychedelics work and they were seeing that they're safe. But because we didn't have the knowledge and also the tools to really understand the brain, they couldn't fully explain how. And that's never, again, super. So the last 10 years, we really understood the brain. And there's still things to learn, but we understand and we know about the brain more than ever before. So for the first time, we are able to really explain what happens to your brain on psychedelics. And that is sort of the third point. So cannabis paved the way. The problem is gigantic. We need a solution, and we understand the brain better than ever before. So these were the three things which really changed so that our work at Atai is possible now.
Thank you. Thanks, Christian. That's a great overview. And while studies are still being conducted, psychedelics remain inaccessible for most people. And as you mentioned, mental health affects now billions of people around the world. I saw the latest study by Harvard Kennedy School, which says that something like 25% of young people are thinking of self-harm, or they know somebody who had committed suicide. Christian, you previously referred to Instagram and other social media as fake reality. And you blamed it for a lot of the depression and anxiety that people are experiencing as a result of using it. And social media is just one example of our interdependence with technology, which is really altering what it means to be human. Our digital diet is loaded with unhealthy information calories, and that is directly affecting our cognitive capabilities, as the latest research shows. So you have an entire fund and team dedicated to mental health, which focuses on technologies such as BCI, brain-computer interfaces, and other new modalities that seek to address the mental health challenge. So my question for you, Christian, is, besides psychedelics, what other new modalities are you discovering in this space? And can technology really provide us the tools to solve the mental health crisis that it has arguably contributed to in first place?
Okay, so two answers. The interesting thing, because you mentioned again, true, like today psychedelics are not accessible because it's also important for everybody in the audience who says, oh my God, like this is so exciting. Can I try it? Like at the moment in the Western world, not actually in South America, where it's part of their culture because it's part of their spiritual culture, but in the Western world, so in Europe and in the US, psychedelics are a Schedule 1 drug. So they're illegal, not accessible. But hopefully we're changing that, making them medically available, by the way, pretty quickly. So our most advanced compound is the active ingredient in magic mushrooms, which is called psilocybin. We're entering phase 3 now, which is the final one. So you could hope like in 3 yearish, 2-3 yearish, like it should be then starting to be available with therapists together, again, in Europe and the US at the same time. So the interesting thing is that we can take, and I come to the tech question in a second, we can take away a lot of things from understanding how psychedelics work, and then a little bit already try to incorporate these things in our life without psychedelics, actually. Because psychedelics, again, the amazing, why I think they are the best sort of part or the most important tool we have for fighting the mental health crisis is because they don't manipulate you like other mental health drugs. So they are the old ones like SSRIs, benzos, sort of the classical antidepressant drugs. They're very manipulative. For example, if somebody gets depressive because a loved person has died, then there are drugs already now on the market I could give to you and you wouldn't care. But if you loved somebody, you want to care and you want to grieve to a certain extent. That's what is part being human, but you want to be able to cope with the grief. And sort of there are like, I'd say, manipulative drugs, and then there are psychedelics who would not manipulate you, but rather help you and show you how to sort of work through that, if it makes sense. So this is why I think that's their strengths. And this is why there's such an important part. So coming to technology, so what I think is that every time, this is the risky part of what I said at the very beginning, every time when we completely, if you could go through history, every time of massive sort of innovation always upsets people because our brain is actually craving for linearity and planability. And we have everything else in our world at the moment, and it's going to get worse than linearity and planability. So, and this is frightening people. This is making people anxious. And sort of, I think the whole sort of speed and velocity of disruption, and again, we just start seeing the beginning of it, is actually creating that mental health crisis. I think ultimately, once we've gone through that sort of adjustment period, the world will be much better, but the adjustment period in itself can be very painful. And there I can always back, like the core will be psychedelics, because that's one other thing. They help you easing into new realities. They make you open for new things. But yes, meaning like look at brain-computer interface, like again, first understanding the brain, and then being able to connect with a computer can be something which frightens people first, but can also give us amazing opportunities to heal things like quadriplegic people.
I'm sensitive of our remaining time, so just want to move on to our next topic. Okay. Definitely the 2-hour session for this. So our next topic is longevity and life extension, which I know you're also passionate about. I've been fortunate to spend time in some of the longevity blue zones around the world. For those who don't know, these are the regions where people seem to live much longer than average. And what I've learned is, and it's actually been well researched and documented, is that a common pattern for the centenarians is that their longevity is not only a function of being healthy on a physical level, which is a result of nutrition and active lifestyle, but also mentally, as well as on a consciousness level, that is being connected to a higher purpose, whether that's through faith, religion, community work, or similar. So longevity in this area is really an art of living a fulfilling life. And then there's the emergent science of longevity, pioneered by figures such as Aubrey de Grey and Ray Kurzweil. And that focuses primarily on finding treatments for the 9 hallmarks of aging. with the purpose of stopping and even reversing the aging process. Christian, you're also part of the movement pushing for aging to be classified as a group of complex diseases that can be prevented, cured, and even reversed. So can you share with us more about what longevity means to you and what impact you wish to play in this area through the companies that you invest in?
Well, you described it perfectly. So there's like the short version is aging sucks. So I think we tell ourselves that aging is good because like we deemed it so far unevitable. So humans since thousands of years, 10,000 of years, we tell ourselves the story, oh, it's happening to everybody and there is something good in it. Truth is, there is some merit in having more experience, whatever, but I want to have all the upside, having more experience, learning more, whatever, without the downside of an aging body. Yeah. And I deeply believe, and by the way, it's not even a belief anymore. When I started, we have two big companies in that sector. I started Rejuveron and Cambria, and when I started them, 2018, it was still sort of, I had to say, we believe aging is a disease. In the meantime, a little bit like psychedelics became very quickly accepted. Sort of the fact that aging is a disease, and you mentioned the so-called 9 hallmarks of aging. So we understand what's happening, is becoming actually accepted. And the good thing is, then we wrap up, is like, again, I'm very optimistic. Humans have a lot of faults, but we have at least one, we have more, but like one of our great sort of traits, or talents is actually, once we've defined something as a problem, and especially once we understood the mechanism of the problem, we normally always solve it. So we have an amazing sort of talent for problem solving. So now that we actually all agree in science that aging is a problem, we found out, oh, there are 9 hallmarks of aging. So there are 9 fields or 9 subfields where things go wrong. Actually, many, many smart people are working to finding solutions. There won't be the solution overnight. So we won't wake up and live to 200. But what's going to happen? And by the way, coming back to the big picture of changing the world, over the next 20 years, we're going to push, in my point of view, life expectancy in the first step towards 100. That's going to happen the next 20 years. And very important, because some people are then like, oh, I don't want to be like 100, because they think of the 90-year-old grandmother who's very frail and in bad condition. At the same time, it's impossible to push life expectancy without not sort of reversing the bad signs of aging. So we're going to be 100 plus in a very young and youthful and fit and alert state. And
that's very exciting. That's very exciting, Christian. And just before, we're being told that we have to wrap this up, but just before we end the conversation, I have a quick off-topic question for you, if you're up for that. Great. So the question is there any conspiracy theory that you believe in and that you can share with the audience today?
Well, yeah, you said that this is very interesting, especially like in Romania, people like conspiracy theories. The thing is like, my view is actually that there are less conspiracy theories, there are less real conspiracies than people really think. So first of all, I say that with all the love for all my friends in politics, but like I know too many politicians, that I would say they're capable of keeping a secret or pulling things like that off. By the way, combined especially with technology, like I believe actually we have too little secrets and secrecy in diplomacy and politics than too much. So people always believe there is something happening behind the scenes. And by the way, it's actually sad that there's not. I would be way more happy if there would happen more behind the scenes. We're living, unfortunately, in a world where the entire political game is so much in the limelight and so transparent that I think certain solutions between countries on a big level could be actually achieved better in privacy, which we unfortunately don't have. So it's the other way around. We have too little, I won't call it conspiracy, but we have too little secrecy in politics. And the second is that a lot of things which actually people think is a conspiracy theory, partly are also true. And just we're living in a world where we can't say the obvious because of political correctness. So political correctness, I think, and the whole fake conversations about things, is giving people the feeling, oh, there must be some conspiracy behind. No, we're just falling into this dumb political correctness hole, and we need to dig ourselves out of that. So these are actually the two things where I think, that there are less conspiracy theories than people think.
Thanks.
And I would be happy we had more.
fun and candid answer, Christian. It's been such a pleasure talking to you today. Thanks, Vlad, and everyone at Tech Sylvania for having us. I hope you enjoyed it, and I wish you all a great rest of the conference.
Thank you so much, Angelica and Christian. It was fantastic having you virtually with us, and hopefully next year in person.